Tom Fitton is here. He's the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, we were just talking in the break, getting ready, preparing for this conversation, and we're trying to remember, Stu and I was Judicial Watch started because of or just at the same time of the Monica Lewinsky stuff?
Just before Monica Lewinsky, it was really in large measure in response to the Clinton gang playing games, selling trade mission suits, you may recall.
Oh, Jesus.
They had China connections. Bill had his presidential legal expense trust fund that was getting shady money from abroad. It was a mess. I wish things have gotten better, but they just got worse.
And, part of it is because we never got those people. I mean, you guys have done such a great job at exposing all of this. And some of the people you've done some amazing work in the courtroom, too. But it doesn't feel to the average person that anything's really changed. Nobody ever pays a price.
Yes, and that's why it keeps on happening again. It's, all the evidence is out there. Judicial Watch has uncovered it. Tulsi Gabbard just released more evidence. But what are the consequences?
Correct.
And for, the politicians like Hillary or Obama or Biden, to the degree he's paying attention or is capable of paying attention, it's just a bad news cycle. It doesn't impact their lives. When they make the money they're making, they run for office again. In many ways, they get credibility with their allies for the misconduct. And so without consequences, it's going to happen again and repeat itself.
So let's talk about what Tulsi Gabbard, which not in the Washington Post today, page A15 in the New York Times. I mean, they're acting like this is no big deal. And this appears to me to be the key to everything that has happened in the last 10 years. Do you read it that way?
I think it's another key. I got to go back and say, that there should have been prosecutions long before this.
Right.
And it's just further confirmation. There was yet another meeting, because there had been at least two more that I was aware of that had been publicly disclosed, involving Barack Obama and his top people about Russia. And they went into the meeting. The intel people were prepping, saying, hey, look, Russia was probably messing around with a few things, but they weren't impacting, the counting of votes and, were messing with our election systems. After, that was pulled back. After the meeting, they changed that conclusion or suggested dishonestly otherwise, and then hyper-focused on the Steele dossier. And what was the only issue at this point? Trump was coming into office.
Right.
And they wanted to destroy him.
Correct. But it was these same people all the way through. It's the same group of people. It's Susan Rice, Clapper, Obama, all the way through to the end of the Biden administration.
That's right, and into the beginning of the Trump administration. Remember the meeting just before Comey went to visit Trump to try to get him to talk on the dossier. Mm-hmm. It was a meeting involving Joe, Obama, and Comey. And Comey went the next day, tried to ambush Trump. Trump said, I don't know anything about it. Comey rushed out of the office, started doing his memos to the file because he was spying on Trump. And it didn't stop. And, of course, who were they nervous about, as you point out? Joe Biden. He had these Ukraine issues. Everyone knew he was neck deep with Ukraine corruption. We have the document showing that State Department officials were nervous about it. The Russians were making fun of the Americans, trolling them. That was the language they used, because Biden went to Ukraine just before Trump came into office.
You also had all of the it's weird because the State Department seemed split in half in some ways. Some were warning the White House of this, and the State Department, USAID, all that stuff, they were also helping overthrow the government of Ukraine a couple of times. I mean, it's just such a horrible mix of everything wrong with the country. So Do you see this time maybe there's going to be perp walks? People are going to maybe go to jail or not?
Are you what my honest answer?
No, I don't. You say it like that, and I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
I think they want to do something in the Justice Department and the FBI. I don't think they've got the capacities, and nor do I think the institutions can be counted on to investigate themselves or even do it competently. And frankly, given the way they've handled the Epstein files, which is really basically a transparency question, you got to wonder if they're going to be able to do something more complex.
Oh, my God.
And that's why I've been calling on the president to run it himself, meaning appoint a special prosecutor, have that prosecutor report to him, use people who aren't DOJ people, use people who aren't FBI people. There are plenty of law enforcement in the federal government they can use and utilize, or bring in private people temporarily to begin the criminal investigations and prosecutions. I don't see it happening.
Why?
And if
We've had special counsels all the time. Every president has appointed a special counsel to look into. Why are we not doing it this time? If that's the answer.
That's a good question. It's 6 months. I know I compare and contrast what they did after January 6th, the Biden gang did. You know, they had basically Trump in their sights for prosecution within 6 months. That's what they were thinking about initially. Here, you know, we're getting documents that have been around for 10 years. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, for a long time. Well, yeah, almost 10 years.
10 years. They have been 10 years.
And we're expecting something new to happen? I hope so. Let's keep on keeping on, but let's not be naive.
What is it that you are pushing for on Epstein? More than just the grand jury records? Because didn't the president just say that he was calling on the judges to release that?
Yeah, and those are transcripts, right? What other information is there? You know, we kind of go through it. You know, we approach this with a straightforward technique, which is just give us the records that you can give us under law.
Right.
We still haven't gotten one record under FOIA on these Epstein issues. You know, we saw that mess they made early part of the year. We said, okay, give us these records about Epstein. You say you have. Give us the records showing there was an issue about getting the records out about Epstein. You know, the FBI supposedly was accused of obstructing the release. We've gotten zero records yet. So I'm glad they went to the court. I'm glad there's this commitment for the release of, quote, credible information. But it's a straightforward FOIA issue. Just start releasing the records under the Freedom of Information Act. Why? Because it won't completely, but it will reassure many Americans that there's a legal process in place. Here's the record. Here's what's blacked out. Here's the reason why. These are how many records we have. You can't have these. You can't have these. And then it's adjudicated in a court. The modified limited hangout process doesn't work.
Is anybody looking into his financial records? I mean, that seems to be, follow the money. That would tell us something about who's funding what. How is he moving all of this money in all these shell corporations all offshore?
Well, there's nothing that would prevent the release of any records they compiled in the course of this investigation. And presumably that was part of the process. And if it's available under FOIA, it should be released. And and when they say we can't release something, almost always that's a discretionary decision, meaning it's a political decision in the end whether to release or not release information. And that's something they didn't really want to grapple with. And I think that's why they put out that crazy memo a few weeks ago. We don't want to release any of it because to kind of do the process is hard. But on the other hand, they went into the court in our case, Glenn, and they told them the day after the memo got out, we're still looking at FBI and DOJ records for potential release here. And so, we'll get back to you.
Wow. Dershowitz says that all of this stuff, any roadblocks in the secrecy, a lot of it has been caused by federal judges. Have you heard that? Is that true?
I mean, caused by federal judges is just one way of saying, well, the law requires grand jury materials to be kept secret unless otherwise, unless there's a real significant public interest in releasing them. So it's kind of the ordinary handling of criminal records. But there are a lot of, they're talking about records by law they say they can't release. We still don't have an idea of what records by law they can release and haven't released.
So what do you think about the concerns that MAGA is doing really the bidding of the Democrats who want to get Trump by any means necessary, and that we're focused on the wrong thing? If you focus on this, I personally think that what was released by the DNI on Friday is massive, because this fits into a puzzle that I've been putting together for 10 years. And to me, it shows everything you need to know. But maybe that's just me. What do you think about the argument that MAGA should just sit down and be quiet?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got lots of lawsuits on that, too. I mean, to me, it's kind of a straightforward response. Give us the records you promised you were going to give to us, and, just move on from it. Let's get the process in place and release the records as you promised. I mean, the president and the administration is doing a wonderful amount of work. And no one's suggesting, just because they did one thing great means they don't have to do anything else that's great.
Right.
And in the case of transparency, these are kind of the core issues. The Epstein issue is a big issue for the American people. Like it or not, it's a big issue. They promised to release records. They haven't released it. And and to a degree, it's been a problem. It's been a problem caused by the Justice Department and the FBI, who sent out a memo saying, we're shutting it all down. You're all idiots for even thinking there was anything to ask about. And by the way, all the evidence on which we're basing these decisions, you can't have access to. So whose fault is that there was a blowback? The people who wrote the memo. So if I were President Trump and I were looking for a way forward, I'd start focusing on making sure my agencies were doing what they're supposed to do under law and just behave normally, respond to FOIA lawsuits, be transparent. Let's not make a Megillah where none is necessary. And, because there's a lot of other things to do that we really need to get done, like holding those who want to destroy our republic accountable and tried to get me killed last year.
Isn't this argument about the Epstein files, release what you have? Doesn't this kind of fit into the same thing, though, that we were talking about with the DNI? Even if they release it, nobody's going to believe anything's going to be done about it. So what difference does it make?
Well, the American people have a right to know what their government's up to. And it does make a difference in how people calculate who to support, how to approach public policy issues, what credence to give to arguments that politicians make as to government accountability and on a whole sorts of other issues. It's all part of the piece. So if we want to have a government where Americans have no insight into how it operates and there's zero accountability, and accountability sometimes means just knowing who was involved. And there is rough justice. Hillary isn't president because of the emails that we helped release. Does it mean that she was prosecuted? No, but that was kind of a rough justice in the sense that there was a consequence politically for what happened.
I think that rough justice is actually happening for Barack Obama. You look at his popularity, how he's perceived by his own friends and public. I think what's true about him is really starting to come forward, too. Tom, thank you so much for everything you guys do. I really appreciate all the work you've done throughout the years. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. You can follow and help at judicialwatch.org. That's judicialwatch.org.